This is a photograph of a child taken in 1897. The setup is simple. The clothing is plain. It is one of thousands of such portraits that survive from the era. But this image is different. When it was digitized and shared online by a local historical society, it triggered a modern visceral reaction. The reason is the gaze. It is a look that seems to stare through the viewer, a chilling, uncanny expression that defies its simple context. The online debate began almost immediately. The consensus was clear. This had to be a post-mortem photograph, a memento mori of a child posed after death. But experts who examined the file, maintained by Eleanor Vance, soon realized the truth was far more complex. The chill in this photo is not supernatural. It is not the vacancy of death. The truth is locked in asylum ledgers, a photographer's forgotten contract, and the cold reality of a system that discarded its most vulnerable. This is not a ghost story. It is the story of what we now see in that gaze. The image was rediscovered by Eleanor in 2022. It was found in a mislabeled tin box containing municipal receipts from the 1890s. The portrait was unlabeled, save for a faint pencil marking on the back, 1897. Eleanor worked at the county records office, sorting through decades of forgotten documents. When she first held the photograph, something about it unsettled her. The child's face was blank, almost empty. The eyes seemed to look past the camera, past the photographer, past everything. She decided to digitize it and share it with a local history group online. Within hours, comments flooded in. People were disturbed. Many were convinced they were looking at a dead child. The image was immediately flagged by online communities as a classic example of Victorian post-mortem photography. To understand this reaction, we must explore the tradition itself. Professor Julian Croft studied Victorian mourning customs for decades. He explained the memento mori tradition to Eleanor when she contacted him. The desire to have one last image of a loved one was powerful in an era of high mortality. These photos often featured subjects posed in sleep or with eyes painted onto closed lids. Families treasured them. They were acts of love, not morbidity. Julian believed the 1897 photo could fit this pattern. The vacant stare, he said, was consistent with post-mortem portraiture, but not everyone agreed. Dr. Robert Finch was a photo historian who specialized in 19th-century techniques. When Eleanor sent him the high-resolution scan, he studied it carefully. Robert noted that while the gaze was vacant, other signs contradicted the post-mortem theory. The child's posture was rigid. The hands showed tension. The fingers were slightly curled as if gripping something invisible. In post-mortem photos, the body was relaxed. This child was not relaxed. Eleanor then reached out to Dr. Evelyn Reed, a medical examiner who had consulted on historical cases before. Evelyn analyzed the photograph with clinical precision. She pointed to the subtle focus in the eyes and the tension in the neck muscles. The conclusion was firm. The child was almost certainly alive when this photo was taken. Evelyn's assessment changed everything. If the child was alive, what explains the profound, hollow, and chilling gaze? The first clue was not in the child's face but on the casing of the original glass plate. Eleanor examined it under magnification and found a small embossed studio mark in the corner. It was faint, nearly worn away, but readable. She contacted Sarah Jenkins, a genealogist who specialized in 19th-century business records. Sarah traced the mark to a local studio that operated in the city between 1893 and 1901. The studio belonged to a man named Augustus Blackwood. This was the first major breakthrough, but Augustus was not a typical family portraitist. Dr. Ivan Morley had studied the work of Augustus for years. Ivan curated a small exhibition of industrial photography from the 1890s, and Augustus's name appeared frequently in the records. Ivan explained that Augustus's work was technical, not sentimental. He specialized in documentation. His surviving ledgers, analyzed by Ivan, show very few private clients. Most of his income came from official contracts. He photographed industrial sites for insurance companies. He documented crime scenes for the local constabulary. And, most notably, he had a recurring retainer with the nearby county asylum. The focus of the investigation shifted. This was not a family portrait. It was institutional documentation. Dr. Catherine Hale was a medical historian who had written extensively about 19th-century psychiatry. She explained the role of photography in that field. It was the era of phrenology and eugenics. Doctors believed madness or degeneracy could be seen and categorized through physical appearance. Photography became a tool of supposed science. Asylums across the country hired photographers to document patients upon intake. The photos were used for study, for classification, for record-keeping. They were never meant to be seen by families. Superintendent Thomas Gideon ran the county asylum during the 1890s. Catherine found records showing that Thomas was a proponent of this photographic documentation. He believed in the power of the camera to reveal hidden truths about the mind. He hired Augustus to photograph every new patient. The process was cold and efficient. Patients were brought into a bare room. They were positioned in front of a plain backdrop. No props, no warmth, just a face and a number. The photos were filed away in medical ledgers categorized by diagnosis. The child in the 1897 photograph was a patient. The chill is the gaze of an inmate, but Sarah continued digging. Who was this child? The asylum's admission records from 1897 were difficult to access. Many were sealed. Others were damaged by water or fire over the decades. The ones that survived were often incomplete. Catherine described the asylum's conditions based on similar institutions of the era. It was not a place of healing. It was a custodial warehouse. Treatments included hydrotherapy, which meant plunging patients into ice-cold baths. There was isolation in dark rooms. There were restraints, sometimes for days. Children were not spared these methods. The child's gaze was now recontextualized. It was not the look of illness. It was the look of profound trauma, confusion, and institutionalization. But Eleanor, Sarah, and the others wanted more. They wanted a name. They wanted to know how this child ended up in that room, in front of Augustus's camera. The asylum's medical files were lost. But Sarah searched a different archive, the city's financial records. She spent weeks in the basement of the municipal building, going through ledger after ledger. Finally, she found something, a payment ledger from the office of Magistrate Elias Thorne, a local official. The ledger showed a payment to the county asylum in August 1897 for the intake and care of a child. The entry was brief, but it included a name. Max. This was the cross-reference they needed. Sarah then searched the local newspaper archives from the weeks before August 1897. She found a small story buried on page 4 of the August 10th edition. A tenement fire. A husband and wife died in the blaze. The building was overcrowded and poorly maintained. The couple lived on the 3rd floor. They left one survivor, their child, Max. The article was only 3 sentences long. It did not say what happened to Max after the fire. The pieces were now in place. Max was not mad. Max was an orphan. Magistrate Elias Thorne, with no municipal orphanage to send the child to, signed a committal order. Max was sent to the asylum as a ward of the state. The asylum was a convenient place to dispose of an inconvenient child. In the eyes of the city, it solved a problem. The child had nowhere to go. The asylum had beds. The paperwork was simple. The 1897 photograph was taken by Augustus on the day of Max's admission. The child, having just lost their family and their home, was now being processed into an institution. Max stood in front of the plain backdrop. Augustus positioned the camera. He did not speak to the child. He did not offer comfort. This was a job, a routine task. He exposed the glass plate and moved on to the next patient. The photo was filed away in Thomas's records, labeled only with a number and a date. The mystery of the chill is solved. It is the gaze of total loss. It is the look of a traumatized child confronting a cold, bureaucratic system. The chill is not the child. It is the realization of the profound failure and cruelty of the system that imprisoned them. When modern viewers see the photo, they are not seeing illness. They are not seeing death. They are seeing the moment a child realized the world had abandoned them. The simple portrait is, in fact, an indictment. Robert, the photo historian, noted that the starkness of the image is typical of record-keeping photography. There is no warmth, no humanity. The child is reduced to a specimen. The backdrop is bare. The lighting is harsh. Even the framing is utilitarian. Augustus did not see Max as a person. He saw a subject to be documented and filed away. Eleanor kept digging, hoping to find what happened to Max after that day. She searched through the asylum's discharge records, but they were incomplete. She found no release date. She found no transfer order. Many children who entered the asylum in that era never left. Some died of illness. Others lived there for decades, forgotten by the outside world. Max's fate within the asylum system is unknown. There are no more records. There are no more photographs. The 1897 portrait is the only surviving evidence that Max existed at all. The power of the image is that we can now see the story behind the eyes. It is a reminder of the countless forgotten lives in history, reduced to a single, haunting file photo. Max was not unique. Thousands of children passed through similar institutions in the late 1800s. Most left no trace. Their stories were buried in mislabeled boxes, burned in fires, or simply discarded when the asylums closed. What began as a simple, chilling image has become a profound historical document, forcing us to bear witness to a story that was meant to be forgotten. The investigation revealed the mechanics of a system that treated vulnerable children as problems to be solved rather than people to be cared for. Magistrate Elias Thorne signed the order without hesitation. Superintendent Thomas Gideon accepted the child without question. Augustus photographed Max without empathy. Each person played their role in a process that was routine, legal, and utterly inhumane. Julian, the Victorian expert, reflected on the case. He said that the 19th century was an era of contradictions. It was a time of progress and innovation, but also of profound cruelty. The same society that built libraries and museums also built asylums that warehouse the inconvenient. The same culture that valued family and home also created systems that tore families apart. Max's story is a window into that darker side of history. Evelyn, the medical examiner, noted that the trauma visible in Max's eyes is something she has seen in modern cases. It is the look of a child who has been removed from everything familiar and placed in an environment they do not understand. It is a look that transcends time. The technology changes, the institutions change, but the human response to abandonment and fear remains the same. Catherine, the medical historian, emphasized that cases like Max's were not rare. Asylums in the 1890s were overflowing with children who had no business being there. Some were orphans, some were poor, some were simply difficult. The threshold for commitment was low. Families could petition to have children sent away. Magistrates could sign orders with little oversight. Once inside, children had no advocates. They had no voice. They existed in a legal and social limbo. Sarah, the genealogist, discovered one more detail in her research. She found a census record from 1900. The county asylum is listed, along with the number of residents. Children are counted separately. The list includes ages, but no names. There's a child listed as approximately 10 years old in 1900. If that was Max, the child would have been about 7 or 8 when the photograph was taken in 1897. Sarah cannot confirm it. The record is too vague. But it suggests Max may have lived in the asylum for at least 3 more years after that photograph was taken. Ivan, the photography curator, placed the image in a broader context. He explained that Augustus was part of a movement in photography that valued objectivity above all else. Photographers in the 1890s saw themselves as neutral observers. They believed the camera could reveal truth without bias. But as Max's story shows, the supposed objectivity was a lie. The choice of who to photograph, how to pose them, and where to file the image was deeply political. Augustus was not neutral. He was complicit in a system that dehumanized the people he photographed. Eleanor has kept the photograph in her care. She displays it occasionally at local history events, always with Max's story attached. She refuses to let it be seen as just a creepy old photo. She insists that viewers understand the context. The chill they feel is not supernatural, it is historical. It is the weight of a child's suffering, preserved on glass and transmitted across more than a century. The 1897 portrait is simple, but it is no longer anonymous. It is the only surviving record of Max. The child's fate within the asylum system is unknown. We do not know if Max ever left. We do not know if Max found kindness or cruelty in the years that followed. We do not know if Max lived to adulthood or died young. The silence is its own kind of tragedy. What we do know is that Max was real. Max had a family. Max had a home. Max lost everything in a fire and was then lost again in a system that did not care. The photograph is proof that Max existed. It is proof that Max mattered. And it is proof that history is not just the story of the powerful and the famous. It is also the story of the forgotten, the discarded, and the invisible. History is full of stories hidden in plain sight. Photographs like Max's exist in archives all over the world. They sit in boxes, unlabeled and unexamined. Each one is a life. Each one is a story. The challenge is finding the courage to look closely, to ask questions, and to refuse the easy answers. Max's photograph could have remained just another creepy image shared online. Instead, it became a window into a brutal system and a reminder of the children who suffered within it. If you want to see more mysteries unlocked, subscribe to our channel and share your thoughts on this story in the comments.